Hello, everyone. My name is Eduardo Espinosa. I'm from Ecuador, and my investigation title is Has Leadership Styles a Direct Relation with Conflict Management? An Empirical Study of SMS Managers in Ecuador. So, in honor to the time, I'm going to be very briefly on the motivation and justification. Well, Ecuador is a developing country. Data from 2016 reveals that 83% economy focus on SMS, 24% of employment are generated by SMS in Ecuador, and 10% of total sales on this country become from SMS, but 47% SMS closed between 2009 and 2014. So one of the problems is that many factors are involved in the low survival rate of Ecuadorian SMS. Well, multiple studies attempt to compare behavioral characteristics of the managers in SMS. They have lack of formal procedures. Well, another aspect of managerial development of organizational behaviors. They are able to achieve goals for the organization and are committed with their team to create a significant impact. We have three variables to this study combined to understanding why SMS are not survivable. Well, the first one is leadership styles. We have three another variables here. There is transformational leadership styles, transactional leadership styles, and laissez-faire leadership style. So by the second one studied here was trust, that trust manifests by the experience on relationship. They are at a development stage. Subordinates learn appropriate behaviors. Becoming teams will be more inclined to the cooperation. They're crucial for successful collaboration. And we have two another variables here. There is affective trust and cognitive trust. And last, the third variable studied in here was the conflict management. 20% of time, managers are resolving conflicts in the enterprises. They are unavailable in teams because conflicting ideas have objectives of techniques, etc. Depending on the leader behaviors, they improve employees' performance, and that's why it is important. So for here, dual concern theory are evaluated to conflict management behaviors. There, another half, we show 5 types of conflict management styles: problem solving, yielding, compromising, forcing, and avoiding. So we combine these variables. First one, leadership and conflict management. So when we have those combination of the variables, leaders encourage their subordinate. The personal versus organizational interesting is in a conflict situation. People are more able to cooperate and solve problems. So leaders motivate their employees to increase their organizational commitment and reduce the conflict among employees. Then we have the mediation effect of trust, because trust is vital in managerial life. Improve work performance, the organizational commitment, and job satisfaction. People who have trust have better decisions, resolution, confront organizational conflict better. A conflict situation will change according to trust created, and that's why this is important. Well, we have 4 hypotheses here. Then the method was well, first the sample and procedure. Sample managers were 341 managers in Ecuador. One by one, manager was asking to the 3 testing instruments: leadership, trust, and conflict management. The 3 questionnaires were validated, and then we have the results. First one, the relationship between leadership styles and conflict management. As we know, all of them are relationship, and we support our hypothesis. Transformational leadership has a good connect with compromising style, conflict management. Transactional leadership has already two with problem solving. So there are important combinations and relationships between them. Then we have the mediation effect of trust. As we know, the variables are combined perfect and improve better. Then we have a path analysis, that indirect effects, and corroborate partially the hypothesis number 4. Conclusions: SMS leaders use different conflict management style in determinate situation or depending the leadership style. A strong relationship between leadership, trust, and conflict management. These 3 variables are according to managerial perspective. Cross mediation between leadership style and conflict management behavior exists. Cross mediation was not identified between transformational leadership and problem-solving behavior because that kind of people has, for their natural attitude, they have to problem solving and they don't need mediation of trust. Implications by theoretical: do not adopt only one style or favorite one style over others. Adopted a mixed variables here. Leadership style patterns influenced by demographic characteristics too. Trust and leadership difference among employees and managers. Cross mediation, leadership style, and conflict management has trust is fundamental to improve the relation between of those. By practical implications, non-style use benefits and course of action in the most appropriate shape. Managers' selection processes will be better with that. We can create reliable work groups. Relationships do not happen spontaneously, and behaviors important or impact on decisions fulfilling or failure organizational objectives. We have limitation here, self-assessment method, social pressure, data collect cross-sectional. For future research, we recommended to replicate this analysis, comparative between countries and other organizations too. Analysis other organizational behavior variables, and we have a specific competence maybe. Focus on transformational leadership, affected trust, and problem-solving strategies because there were the more impact on this study. Okay.
Okay, my study is about consumption of beverages among secondary and intermediate students in Riyadh school, Saudi Arabia. My name is Ali Ben Al-Farraj, and I have 2 co-authors. Dr. Hassan Faqihi, he is a pediatric nephrologist, and Mr. Isam Al-Fayyad, he is one of the expert people in the research, and he was helping me with this one as well. As introduction, you know that water is very important for life as well as the rest of the beverages we are taking every now and then. And here in Riyadh city, you know, the weather is very hot. In the summer season, the weather or the temperature might reach 45 to 47 degree in averages. And you know, the kids, especially adolescent people, they are maybe they are just having their consumption of beverages, especially during the daytime. And this study aims to evaluate the beverages consumption among the school children aged from 12 to 18 years in Riyadh city. This study was conducted as a cross-sectional study, and we have used the online self-administrated questionnaire among the intermediate and the secondary school students. Actually, this one was conducted during the COVID time. This study survey was designed based on the detailed literature review and we have an expert consultant, Dr. Hassan. He is a nephrology consultant. You know, the first part of this survey considered the demographic and clinical data of the students. The second part was amount of beverages consumed, including water, juice, milk, coffee, tea, and soda. We used images to have the description of beverages for the kids. So it will be easy for them to ask the survey questions and reach as much as possible to accurate evaluation of this consumption. The last part of the study was the knowledge of recommended amount of beverages among the adolescents age per day. These are the some pictures we have shared with the questionnaire to show them the types of beverages that they are going to answer the questionnaire accordingly. The sample size calculation, actually, we have depends on one of the studies, the prevalence of inadequate hydration in USA, and it was around 54.4%. And we have estimated the number of governmental school, secondary, and intermediate stages. And we found that the estimated number is 288,125 students. And according to that, we have calculated the sample size of our study, and it was around 1,497. For the statistical analysis, we have used the SPSS, and the descriptive statistics were used to summarize the participant characteristic distribution of total beverage consumption, and the p-value was the less than 0.05 considered for to indicate the significance results. For ethical approval consideration, we have already the ethical approval from the Institutional Review Board in King Fahd Medical City, and this is the hospital I'm working in. We have already a research center, big research center there. And the questionnaire included a cover letter from the children's informed consent indicating the completion of the questionnaire. And there is also an official approval from the General Directorate of Education in Riyadh City, Minister of Education, to have this such like studies or questionnaire. The results, we have a total of 1,647 online invitations were distributed, and there was 1,548 participants responded and completed the questionnaire with a response rate of 94%. This is the first table I am showing to you right now is the characteristics of the 1,548 students, and you see the distribution. It's from 12 to 13, and there was also from 14 to 18. Most of the responders were female compared to the male, and we have the school age, intermediate school age were less than the secondary school age. And the significant medication disease, we have already identified that we have around 1.6 of these responders to the survey. They have a significant diseases related to renal, and they have excluded from our study because they're, some diseases, they have either restricted fluid or hydration more or taking more than required. Depends on their disease, though. So we have excluded this 25 cases. Comparison of total consumed amount beverages by participants with their characteristics, we have found significantly that the age group of age 12 to 13, they have a total amount of 1,881 plus minus the 811. And the gender also for the female and male, they have also the beverages intake of 1,918, and the males, they are having also a little bit higher amount, which is 2,238. We have also more details about the by gender, male, female, 12 to 13, 14 to 18, and also we have also the intermediate and secondary school. They have also here in the comparison participants consumed amount of beverages. We have shown that here in the study, I can just tell you brief about this one as a conclusion. We will not go deep into it because it is detailed information. But in the conclusion, guys, we need to know that the water is the most significant contributor of fluid consumption on all age group. And however, the daily beverage consumption, we found out that it is lower than the World Health Organization recommendation. And the largest proportion of the adolescents or is at risk of inadequate hydration. So this study found that really there is a significant results of the intake is lower than the recommended. So inshallah, the next step will be having having another study, and we will have an implementation with action to have the maybe we will find a way to implement and encourage the students to have more water intake. Then after that inshallah, we will look into the results. At the end of my presentation, I would like to express my appreciation to the Research Center at King Fahd Medical City for funding this study. And these are the references I have used. And this is my end of presentation. Thank you.
Investigation of the effect of metal hip protease on dose distribution in radiation therapy for 18 MV photon beam using thermoluminescence dosimetry. And radiation therapy, often abbreviated, is a therapy using ionized radiation general as part of cancer treatment to control or kill malignant cell and normal delivered by a linear accelerator. Radiation therapy may be curative in a number of types of cancer if they are localized to one area of the body. Effect of metal hip protease on the distribution because metal protease have a high atomic number. They cause artifacts in computed tomography. These artifacts cause error is unfilled identified in the implant itself and the surrounding tissue. This error in Hansfield value case dosimetric uncertainties in patient treatment planning in radiation therapy. In radiation therapy beam planning and those evaluations are also made in the treatment planning system. Hip protease localized close to the target volume cause heterogeneous dose distributions and adverse affect the desired dose distributions. And cobalt chrome molybdenum alloy hip protease. The purpose of this research in this study and cobalt chrome molybdenum alloy hip prothesis was placed in a special cylinder phantom with a density close to human tissue with the three-dimension printer and exposed to 18 MV photon beam. In vivo dose distribution were measurements by inserting a thermoluminescence dosimetry and compare with results from AAA. And hip prothesis in this study, cobalt chrome molybdenum alloy, which is preference in hip replacement source was used. The stamp size and stamp length of the prothesis were 12 mm and 120 mm respectively. The prothesis was divided into 3 parts according to their thickness. The thick parts parts 1, the middle parts part 2, and thin parts part 3 respectively. Results the calculated and measurement dose and percent difference for the cobalt chrome molybdenum alloy hip replacements are given in table 1. It was observed that the thickness of the metal artifact surface does the prothesis. According to difference between AAA and TLD, dose on the prothesis surface was %3. Photon scattering oscillates due to the density of the atomic number of cobalt chrome molybdenum. The AAA algorithm could not correctly calculate secondary photon due to scattering. And absorption dose increase with increase in distance from the metal surface. The point dose calculated by the AAA algorithm were lower than the TLD dose for all thickness of the prothesis along the YX. And making the point take measurements on the phantom. TLD, which was obtained by doping natural lithium fluoride and magnesium and form of the chip of 3.2 mm. Was placed around the prothesis placed in the center of the phantom. In addition, thermoluminescence were fixed to the point determined along the EX on the upper and lower surface of cylinder phantom. For the two prothesis, dosimetric measurements were made at the designated point. Within the phantom 44 thermoluminescence positions were determined on the XX, the length of the prothesis. Comparison of those calculated by TPS and measurements by TLD for the thin parts of the hip prothesis. Calculate those AAA and passive beam calculation, measurement dose, and percent difference. And conclusions in case of hip replacement, accuracy of those estimations of the AAA algorithm was investigation for 18 MV is different except using thermoluminescence dosimetry. It was observed that the uncertainties of the AAA algorithm increase as the density of diameter of the hip replacement increase. Therefore, in the treatment of patient with hip replacement with radiation it should be considered that the proteins might affect the treatment. Reference and thank you for listening.
Mona Popa, myself, Julia, who is helping me with the presentations, Hadar Anton, professor from Polytechnic, Petra, Cornelia Petre, and George Suciu from BEA. Now, next slide, please. I want to say something. The work from this paper comes from a Horizon European project who tries to detect using AI products defects. So that basically this is based on real industrial data that it was produced by our partners in consortium. And basically the main scope of multi-AI was exactly this, to discover product defects via AI engine. Now, basically, we know that defects in products are not good, and basically can lead to safety issue, product recalls, financial losses, and that's why making defect detection crucial. And one of the way to do this is to use artificial intelligence. Next slide, please. Also, it's a list of articles that we give in the articles that we give in the bibliography of our article. And here I didn't put us in the previous presentation, all of them. So that what we can say is that looking to the related work, we can say that AI for automatic detection of defects is a new trend. And basically there is a need of more research in this area. The current article, it's a new line in this research. Next slide, please. The next slide, please. Okay, basically, I told you that this is coming from real data. And basically, we are trying to have some defects type in microfluidic chip productions. And basically, we have a burr, dark spot, incomplete parts, and so on. Basically, a burr is formed to the inadequate clamping force, damage mold, excessive injection pressure, speed, or poor mold design. A dark spot is caused by contaminated material, poor material mixing, mold contamination, inconsistent cooling or heating, or mold design and venting issue. Incomplete part, basically it's a result of short, insufficient packing, holding pressure, mold tooling issues, and melt material related factors. Okay, next slide, please. Basically here, here is a lure, an example of a lure. You see that this is a plastic material and this is a passage hole for liquid. Next one. Incomplete parts, basically it's incomplete. Basically what your product is not complete. Here it's an example which I think that is not very clear, but basically you will try to detect incomplete parts. Next one. And here is the dashes. If you zoom in, you can see some white dashes here. Basically, this is not okay because the material should be uniform as color. So that this is also a defect. Next slide. Basically, this paper does not discuss how the parameters for our inputs were discovered. We are just discussing about the AI engine. Basically, what was measured was pressure, cushion value, injection pressure after dynamic injection, maximum injection pressure during the dynamic phase, injection time, cycle time, closing time, integral pressure curve based on matrix pressure, integral pressure curve, full curve, measured maximum pressure and time of maximum pressure in cavity. This we try to correlate with different types of defects. What I want to say here is that we are not questioning why these are related. There were the engineers from our partners from consortium who decided that this is okay. Our responsibility was just to try to build an AI that correlates this with the different types of defects, and based on it to see which one is better, so that basically we got this say these parameters, and we tried to build the AI system. Next. Basically, we were using several 6 classification algorithms: regression, decision tree, k-nearest neighbors, linear discriminant analysis, naive Bayes, and support vector machines. Basically, all the data was labeled or good or defective, and with the type of defects: bush. Just a moment. Not complete, dark spot. Next slide, please. Basically, what here is a confusion matrix that we discovered. And basically, what are the main conclusion of this presentation are the following. I think that logistic regression, just a moment. The best was k-nearest neighbors, and after that, this decision trees. And basically, for all the algorithms, the accuracies are given into the paper. I think that the results are quite good in the confusion matrix. Most of the defects were discovered, and basically we had 2 phases as a data with the parameters that we discussed were split into training and testing, and the accuracy and the confusion matrix are based on the after the models were made with the training data. Basically, you with the test data, we computed the confusion matrices and the accuracy. Second, I want to say that this is quite a generic program. If you put some other parameters, you'll get also, say, you can use the same code to generate some other models, so that this is quite a generic Python program for this. Okay, the conclusions, please. Basically, we presented an work using AI from the European Horizon Project Multi-AI for detecting several types of defects and for injection modeling. And basically, we did a generic code that includes 6 algorithms that can be used for that we use for creating models. We compare the accuracy of these models, and we presented the results in this paper. If you have questions, please.
Is Maki Kurumi from Japan, but I'm studying in Indonesia, Pajajaran University, and my study is using Japanese short story, Gongitsune. So all Japan's the 4th grade elementary students studying has this story in autumn, the October 4, 67 years. It's a so much long times. So every day, every year in the autumn. So everybody study this story because this story has recognized as a teaching tool for the learning about the emotion of the characters. The Ministry of Japan that promote emotional understanding in Japanese education language for that. So for there is the linguistic analysis of this story, we don't have the direct linguistic analysis. So my research is make it clear where this story is truly the teaching material for the educational, the emotion. So going to the method, this story has been translated 15 languages, but this time I use the English and Japanese. For my study, how the systemic functional linguistic theory of the transitivity was analyzed manually. So in transitivity, analyzed process types are classified into 6 categories: the mental, the materials, relational, behavioral, verbal, existence. As Japanese and English, the grammar is so much different. So on my study, the Japanese noun sentence and the adjective sentence is a relational process. Then the circumstance elements are taken from the propositional phrases and adverb in the clauses and classified the 10 elements. The place, locations, and the time, extent, accompaniment, and the configuration, manners, cause, role, matter, and angle. So this is the results and discussions. So for the chart of this, the mental process, the second highest in both English and Japanese versions, but seeing in the breakdown of the mental process, in English versions, around 83% Gon's soliloquy were found more fluently, and Gon speaks his feeling, thoughts, and perceptions. The other hand, in Japanese versions, seeing of the breakdown of the behavioral, around 82% Gon's attitudes, the reactions, and action in the emotion in the behavioral rather than the mental process. Those results indicate the Japanese version's consciousness express events and attitudes more minutely than the directly emotion verb. So, and move to the circumstance elements. So, according to this, the results of the chart, we found the difference between the English versions and the Japanese versions. So those are cause and the manners. The English versions, the cause are around 70%. It's higher than the Japanese. It's elements of the reasons, purpose for the protagonist actions. The other hand, the Japanese versions, the manner is the 15% and higher than the English. It indicates the quality and quantity and shape of the persons and the things. From the differences, it's clear the strength of the protagonist intentions differs depending on the language used. So that's the conclusions. So on this study, it's not enough to say to clear out all the words in the text. Japanese onomatope and the meaning of the words are not included in this study. Conclusions that the results of the transitivity analysis of the Gongitsune show the mental and the behaviors process predominates in the both versions. And in the situational elements, the Gongitsune's vocabulary relates to the reason, purpose, and the descriptions of object and people. When I see the words of the Gongitsune's following the Gon's emotional changes in place and time, the reader emphasizes with Gon's feeling and encountered the tragedy caused by the lack of some mutual understanding upon the learning of his final death. This linguistic analysis makes Gongitsune a teaching tool for learning about the emotion of others. So that's all. Thank you.
Greetings of the day to everyone present in this international conference. Me, along with my colleagues, have come to present our research work titled Deep Neural Network Based State of Charge Estimation on Battery Model and Experimental Data. So our research focuses on battery state of charge estimation by using neural networks. The parameter state of charge of the battery is not something which can be measured, but only can be estimated from the physical parameters such as battery's voltage, battery's current, and battery's temperature. Now, for this battery state of charge estimation, there exists various kinds of algorithms, but mainly we can classify them as model-based method and data-driven method. The model-based methods rely mostly on mathematical models of the battery to estimate the state of charge. These model-based methods actually use the physical or empirical relationships between the battery's current and voltage to predict the SOC. The other kind of models are the data-driven methods, which consists of the neural network-based, machine learning-based, and the vector regression-based battery state of charge estimation algorithms. So now, if you see here, there is some kind of comparison we have made. So the model-based methods to estimate the battery SOC are very reliable and accurate, has universal availability, but at the same time requires extensive knowledge of the battery's chemistry, how does it work and all, right? And has relatively longer development time. On the other hand, the data-driven methods has very shorter development time. Those models which you create for battery state of charge estimation can be developed in very short time. And it doesn't require much of the knowledge of the battery's chemistry and how does the battery work and all. But in the same, some limitations for this data-driven approach is like it requires a large amount of data from the battery's behavior. If we don't have such a large amount of data, in that case, we won't be able to predict accurately what is the state of charge of the battery. And also it's a kind of black box model. So if the model is not performing according to our expectations, so it is difficult to kind of figure out where the model is going wrong. So moving on to the next slide. So here we are kind of trying to explain what neural networks are, giving a short description. So neural networks are a type of machine learning algorithms modeled after the human brain, right? So they are made up of interconnected neurons, very much like the human brain. And each neuron can be thought of as tiny interconnected decision-making units, which takes information, processes it, and produces an output which is passed to again the next neuron. The neural network learns from the errors during the prediction process and recognizes patterns to make predictions based on the input data. So now there are multiple neural networks are available, which some of them are feed-forward, multi-layer perceptrons, convolutional, and recurrent neural networks. So in our case, we have used a multi-layer perceptron, which is basically a simple feed-forward deep neural network. Our deep neural network consists of 6 layers. The first is the input layer, then there are 4 hidden layers and 1 output layer. The 4 input layer consists, the input layer consists of 16 neurons. Each hidden layer consists of 256 neurons, and the output layer consists of only 1 neuron, which gives out the battery's state of charge. The input parameters for this machine learning neural network model is battery's voltage, battery's current, and battery's temperature. Coming to the data set on which the machine learning model or the neural network was trained on is we have used 2 different kind of data sets, which is the first, the experimental, and the next one is a data set which we have generated using the PyBAM module of Python. The experimental data was obtained using for a lithium-ion battery cell. This data set which we have received was pre-processed for features extraction and checked for null values and outliers. Similar pre-processing was done for the other data set as well, which my colleague will walk you through.
Hi. PyBAM is a tool that is used to model the battery. PyBAM stands for Python Battery Mathematical Model. There are several methods to model the battery, like the equivalent circuit model, neural network model. Unlike this PyBAM battery, it provides the good data visualization using PyBAM. PyBAM has a good feature that it will support machine learning tools using Python code. That cell that we are using in PyBAM to generate the data of the cell are NMC chemistry. The ratings of the NMC cell are it's have maximum of 4.2 volt and minimum of 2.8 volts. It's have nominal voltage around 3.65 volt. 3.65 volt, and the capacity of the cell that we are using in PyBAM are 5H capacity battery. These are the data set that we are generated from the PyBAM look like this. Here we tabulated two tables that indicates at different temperatures, at different C rates, what are the terminal voltage of the battery and discharge capacity. Here we are generated different C rates, different temperatures. We observe the battery output characteristics. The data visualization using PyBAMs look like this. The first one is battery open circuit voltage, next one is terminal voltage, the next one is current and discharge capacity. Here, first we are discharging at 5 ampere current. First it completely discharge the battery, then we start charging the battery. From the first waveform, we will observe that the battery open circuit voltage, terminal voltage starts increasing after it's completely discharging. The data visualization of the using PyBAM look like this. The data generation using PyBAM is like this. Here, using DFN model, we generated the battery model. Here we had did the data set generation using PyBAM at 1C rate and C by 5 rate. From this PyBAM, we generated the data sets parameters of voltage, current, temperature. These three output parameters we are fed to neural network to train our neural network model. As I said, the PyBAM is basically model on the electrochemical chemistry of the model. These are the electrochemical characteristics of the cell that we are using in PyBAM. It indicates how the positive electrode potential, negative electrode potential, what are the surface concentration of the negative electrode, positive electrodes, and the current voltage that for our NMC cell.
The experimental procedure will be explained by my colleague.
The experimental procedure will be explained by my colleague Adresh.
Yeah. So coming to the experiment which we have conducted. So the two data sets which we obtained, one from the experimental setup and the other from the data generated by the PyBAM. These data were normalized and split into training and test data set in a ratio of 80:20. The MLP was trained using the backpropagation algorithm with the Adam optimizer. The MLP was evaluated in different batch sizes, each batch having 10,000 epochs. The evaluation metric which we used were mean absolute error and mean square error. So here you can see the MSE and MAE for different batch sizes. We have received the lowest error for the experimental dataset at the batch size of 128, which is very evident from the table which is shown here. And for the PyBAM dataset, we have received the same at the batch size of 64. Now, this graph here shows you the true SOC versus the estimated SOC for the experimental data setup for the 100 samples from the test data. Now, if you see this graph shows you the MSE values for the estimated SOC from 1 to 100 for the experimental data set. If you see here, the data set here, okay, sorry, can you go back to the previous slide, please? Yeah. So here, if you see, these are the measure of error. So the SOC values from 90 to 100 have received a bit higher error than the SOC values from 0 till 90. Now, this is the graph which shows you the true SOC versus the estimated SOC on the PyBAM dataset. Okay. So now this is the same graph for the which shows you the error for the different range of SOCs on the PyPAM dataset. So coming to the conclusion and future work for our research. So we can actually fairly conclude that deep neural networks are very effective for the estimation of the state of charge of the battery. Experimental results demonstrate that the proposed approach which we have taken can accurately estimate the SOC with a mean square error of only 0.076% on the experimental data. And also on the PyBAM generated data, we have achieved the MSE of 0.036%. So also we have understood that this model can adapt to different kind of battery chemistries and operating conditions, because finally what it needs only is a data set, right? The more data set you have, the better it is. So it doesn't matter which kind of battery chemistry it is. So as long as it gets a proper good amount of data, so the model will be very useful and very scalable. In now, what the future work which we are planning to do is kind of optimizing this MLP, training it on more data and improving its performance, so that it can work on broader range of batteries, like broader chemistries of batteries. And moving forward, we want to use this similar kind of approach for the estimation of the health of the battery, and also for the estimation of the remaining useful life of the battery. So with that, we come to an end of our presentation. We thank we thank you all for giving us this opportunity to present this research work of ours. Over to you.
Hi to everybody, and I would like to say a few words about catalytic method in energy and environment engineering. So renewable energy. I'm coming from University of Silesia in Katowice in Poland. It's also in Europe, not far from Split. So actually I'm Split because I thought the conference would be stationary in Split. We have large university which originated from one of the largest university, oldest one in Europe, founded in Krakow in 1364. And our group is working in materials and drugs, and actually also catalytic methods. When we come to catalysis, it's something very special, which have been discovered at the early times of catalytic methods, that we need to absorb the reagents on the catalyst not very hard, but also not too weak. So somewhere in the middle of the dissociation energy, we have the optimal catalytic activity of a catalyst. And why metal combinations for such catalysts? So because we can better manipulate with energy. And if we put here the DG descriptor, so energy descriptor, and we put here some this metal combination, we can better prepare an efficient catalytic material. And here are some examples of such metal combinations, and we can see that the activity is optimal somewhere in the middle of the energy. And we can indicate here so-called ensemble and ligand effects, which in some method, it resembles organic chemistry with electronic and steric effects. And what is also important for catalytic materials is economic effects. So people are trying to find cheap material, because we usually must use it in large volumes, and it costs a lot of money. And we developed the method for which we called the nanotransfer. So first we prepared the nanometals on the silica. It looks like that. Here you can see, for example, nano gold on silica, and in here is the particle size distribution, so about 4-6 nanometers. And such materials can very nice catalyze important reaction, as for example cyclohexene or D-glucose oxidation at the ambient temperature in water. So very green chemistry methods. And we prepared a series of such bimetallics and use it for different reactions. So here, for example, here is, for example, nickel. So it's nanopallad on copper, which can catalyze, for example, oh, it looks like, oh, sorry, it looks like here. So it's copper decorated with palladium, and it can be used, for example, in Sonogashira coupling, providing very interesting results, very high yields. Similar materials can be used, for example, for glycerol oxidation, which is important in so-called bio waste preparation, bio-waste treatment. How it looks like, here is transmission electron microscopy. We can see here the nanoparticles. Also, the reaction proceeds with high yields. Also, glycerol acetylation, which can also be catalyzed in high yields. However, what I would like to discuss today, a few more words, is so-called e-fuels, and something really hot, because we should use e-fuels instead of fossil fuels. If you would like to still use, let's say, gas or gasoline and synthetic natural gas. And how to use it? We have, let's say, carbon dioxide or carbon oxide, and in methanation reaction, we are synthesizing methane here. And if we used here the renewable electricity, we have a renewable method, and we can use it in car or as an energy source. Very good appeared in such a system, ruthenium nickel metal combination prepared with our method, how it looks like. So different analysis, and we discovered an effect of ultra low temperature hydrogenation under such results when we use the induction heating option. So and inductive heating of that metal combination, and we can even perform the reaction at -7 centigrade, so very low temperatures. Mechanism I don't have time to discuss in details, but we did describe that in green chemistry. So arsss this method and preparing such systems with metals using the 3D printing method or sintering, and we are putting on that metals nanoparticles, and we can put it in larger reactors and use induction heating method, and here are the results. I mean, the yields are really good using that method. So to the conclusions, bimetallics in silica debris. So using our method is a very good method for catalytic metal combination using the using the renewable method and induction heating. And we have low metal concentration, so it's cheap, it's very efficient, and we can use it for new methods, new technologies. Another method that we can apply this induction heating method is thermochemical energy storage. And we can also use this method, for example, for calcium chloride agglomerates and iron, waste iron, and obtain good results. So biometallics obtains an interesting synergistic system for environmental and energy engineering, and induction heating control is what we are now doing, and acknowledgements are due to NCN Krakow, Opus, and the University of Katowice in Silesia. And thank you very much.
My name is Raj Kumar. I'm from New York. I'm an associate professor in the Bronx at the College of Mount St. Vincent. My research area is in the field of IT and business alignment. And this research is ongoing. Every year we collect the data from different companies from around the world. And then I do the benchmarking and then publish the results out of that. I've presented this at conferences and as well as in the international journals, the research between IT and business. As you know, the IT and business people, the professionals, at the outside, they look very friendly, but when we go deep into their things and ask them, how much do they like business or how the business people like IT, I always see this conflicts. IT people hate business, business people hate IT, right? So when I look at that, the outset, when I ask them, they say, oh, no, we are all good. But then when I give them the data, collect the data, I can see that, how this is. So this is one of the challenges that CEOs of the companies always have the problem. If IT and business guys can work harmoniously, a lot of things can be achieved at the companies, right? Let me take a quick look at this one. That's this strategic alignment maturity that I do the results, that I do the research on this. So this is one of the things that IT and business alignment over the past 3 decades that I've been looking at this one. It's one of the most reasons that the top level executives always worry about, right? And this is on the top list of concerns for IT and business managers, because IT thinks differently, business thinks differently. IT people think they are very superior, business people think they are very superior, right? So to bring them together is the challenge that most of the company executives always talk about. So as I've been doing this research, if you take a look at the slide, security, of course, nowadays is the number one on the radar for everybody. And then how to align IT goals with business goals, how to align business goals with IT goals. If these two people can work, then, there's a lot of things. So this is an ongoing, data that I have from the Society of Information Management. Every year they conduct research with the top CIOs and CEOs, IT executives and business executives. If you look at this, aligning IT goals with business, alignment of IT and business has always been ranked either one in the top 5, I can say, over the past 30 years. Why is this still continuing to think? That's the challenge that we have, right? And yet it remains to be seen, how we can bring these two people together. If I go back, you can see this one again. If you go back all the way since 2000 that I have the data, it's always been ranked either 1, 2, 3 among the top 10 business concerns. So here are the things that I'll be talking very briefly, guys. So it's on the top 10 management issues from 1980s through the 2021-22 that I have the data. So here, what I'm using is one of the experts in the IT business alignment is Professor Jerry Luffman. So we use this model for collecting the data and analyzing the data. So here is how it works. Just when I give out the data, the questionnaire, and I collect them. So there's levels wherein we categorize them from level 1 to level 5. So if you say you are at a level 1, that means there is no communication between IT and business. But if you say you are at a level 5, there's a good relationship between IT and business. So this model is based on 6 criteria. So we collect the data from how the skills between IT and business are being shared, how is there a partnership between IT and businesses, how is the governance in the companies, right? How effective are the communication between IT and business? These are all the things we compare in this model. Right? So if you say at a level 1, say for communication, that means there's entirely no communications between IT and business. But if the data, when I collect the data, if the executive says, hey, we are at a level 5, that means the communication is very informal, it is very pervasive across the organization. That's how it is being analyzed. So if you take a look at this maturity summary, most of the organizations in the worldwide that have seen are always at level 3. Most of the companies are at level 3. Very few companies say that they are at a level 5. Right? So let's take a look at this one. This is the entire data. It's a huge questionnaire, nearly about 60 questions. We collect the data. So the data collection is the hardest part. Those of you who do research in these areas can understand. So when I did this one, we have so far, we have more than 230 companies of the Global 1000. So in all the areas, in most of the things like service or in the IT, government, financial, and things like that, that's our database collection, right? So we have those companies' data. Since we are in New York, I have more companies from financial companies from Wall Street, including many big firms in the financial sector, healthcare, manufacturing, and things like that. So here is how the profile of the participants are. Most of the data you can see, I have much of both IT executives, not many CIOs and CEOs. It's very hard to get the data from these people, and even to share or even to spend time collecting the data is very hard. So we have been doing that from around the world, right? So this is the methodology that I have. We send out the questionnaire, then I talk one-on-one, ask them if they have any issues, and then collect the data, and then we analyze it. So for this since 18 months that I've been doing, this is my data that I have collected from a few companies, from educational institutions, hotels, hospitals, and IT service companies. Some of the IT service companies are from India too that I have on this one. So here is the breakdown of those respondents that I have from CEOs. I had only 4 CEOs who were able to respond to my survey. I have a few good CIOs who responded. So based on this data, I did a benchmarking, right? This is my slides. Overall, from all the data from 230 companies, if you can see, this is at a level of 3.9. They are not at a level 5, right? On average, most of the companies. So let's take a breakdown of this one and try to understand. So I've collected the data and categorized from United States, Latin America, Europe, as well as the current data that I have with the few 26 companies from the last 18 months that I've collected. So out of that, I've just picked few factors for this conference to show you guys. Say, for example, a protocol rigidity. What do you mean by that? That is the IT and business communication style. If the respondent said that, okay, we are at a level 1, that means the communication between them is one way from business. Right? But if they say they are at a level 5, that means both from IT and business, it is informal and flexible. So this is how we are rated from level 1 to level 5. Now, if I go down and when I break it down, you can see how the companies from the United States respondents versus Europe to Latin America and the current data. But if you look at the current data, they're doing good. From the small data that I have, you can see that only 5% is at this level between level 3 to level 5, right? So that means that, the communications protocol rigidity. If you look at the data from the United States, 24% of the companies, right, are at level 5, right? So similarly, in a benchmarking with Europe and Latin America. And this is the data from contribution of IT to business. What do you mean by that? That means, how is IT goals are contributing to the business goals? If they say that they are at level 1, that means they are very weak. If they say they are at level 4, that means they're somewhat strong, or level 5. So now when I did this comparison, if you take a look at this, in my data, 49% of that, right, said the data is somewhat strong. But look at the data, if you can quickly here in the United States, between level 1 and level 2, right? So there's only 19%. Same with the Europe, they're very weak. Look at this, level 3 to 5. So thanks. So that means, the IT communication, what I have is here at a level 5 is very good, right? So then I analyzed it to the low factors that I have here. How is the understanding of IT by business, right? If they say at a level 1, that means senior and mid-level managers do not understand IT at all. So this is the challenge. If IT cannot be understood by the business, what's going to happen, right? So same thing, if they say that, hey, we are at a level 5, that means understanding of IT is required across all the departments, whether it is the IT or a business department, right? So most of the time it is tied to the performance appraisals, whether nothing. Usually cross-training happens. IT guys are training the business guys are training the IT and things like that. So that's the challenge that we have here. So when I did the comparisons here, if you take a look, right? So 38% of the data from the United States do not have the understanding of IT by business, right? So when we say that, senior and mid-level business managers do not understand IT. Can you think of that? Same with the Europe. Most of the companies, they said that, they are between level 1 and level 2. Right. So here, when I collected the data with the small sample, only 11% said that, they are at a level 1 to level 2. And most of them, 49% said that they have a good understanding of IT by all the employees. So this is the, how I do the benchmarking. I collect the data, see where they are at a level 1, level 2, what can we do to improve their level? That's what I give them the recommendations. Going from level 1 to level 2, it's like those of you who are in the computer science or in the IT area know the capability maturity model. It is similar to that model, what we are following here, of how to improve the level. So go from level 1 to level 5, that is what is required, right? So same with the IT business career crossover, right? When we talk about this, mostly is there a crossover between IT? Do IT guys go and learn some business, requirements, or the business people go and learn some IT stuff? It's very challenging, right? So IT guys uses their own IT jargon. Business guys think they are very superior. They take over, they are the ones who allocate the budgets and so forth. So here, what we're talking is there job transfers that occurs between IT and business, right? So if they say that they are at a level 1, that means that never happens. So that means IT guys don't go to the business side to learn, or business people don't come to the IT side to learn. So if they say at level 5, that means job transfers between those two occurs for all the positions. So that means they are very good. They can understand what IT people talk about or what business people talk about. That's what it means when we say IT business career crossovers. So if you take a look at that, so from the current data, 17% of my respondents said that it rarely happens. Whereas look at the United States, most of the companies that I looked at it, 55% said that it rarely happens or occasionally it happens. So this means, what does it tell me? It tells me that IT doesn't understand business. There's no career crossover, or the business guys does not learn IT. That's the challenge. Same with the Europe, 29% of the respondents said that it happens rarely or occasionally, or even with the Latin American companies. Very few companies are there in Latin America that I've collected. Even they said that the same. So then, the education and cross-training, is there a formal practices between those two, whether it's level 1 or level 5? When I did that, it's the same thing. 52%, there's no education and cross-training, right? Same with the Europe, 23% of the respondents said that they do not, either they do not provide, or it depends on their functional units, whether it's in the business or in the IT, whether they do the cross training or the education, things like that. So this is, a continuation of the studies that I've been doing, guys, right? So here I had a very few sample, for the past 18 months, it took me to collect about 26 companies' data. And then, I'm just following up still with these respondents on what we can do to improve their level going forward. So it's basically, most of them are at level 3 or level 4, right? So there are a lot of things that I have done in the previous papers. So we try to extend this research into include the performance measures. I collect the data about their, such as written on assets, written on investments and things like that, and link to see how it impacts the alignment maturity. Right. So thank you, guys. If you have any questions, I'll just post my things and you can contact me.